Do you ever wish it would snow a bunch? Well, maybe not while you're shoveling it. You might be wishing for something else while you're shoveling it. But what if it was so cold outside that it never melted? That can happen in some places this January because there's something called a polar vortex, and it's about to hit. And when it hits, it brings really cold air with it. And I mean really, really cold. Here's how it works. The Earth is kind of like a big ball of yarn. It's covered all the way around with land and water and us humans and everything else we like to put on it. The Earth has an equator that runs around the middle of it, dividing it into the top half, which is called the northern hemisphere, and the bottom half, which is called the southern hemisphere. This time of year, the northern hemisphere is having winter, and the southern hemisphere is having summer. Now, up in the northern hemisphere, we have this thing called the polar vortex, which is a big swirl of very cold air that surrounds the North Pole. It's like a giant snow globe, but instead of snow, it's filled with frigid air that reaches thousands of degrees below zero. Now, normally this polar vortex stays over the North Pole and doesn't really bother us much, but sometimes it can weaken and wobble, and that's when it sends cold air out from the pole. And that cold air can travel all the way down to the equator. This happens because the Earth is kind of wobbling on its axis right now. Every 27 days or so, the Earth wobbles a little closer to the Sun. And this affects the polar vortex because the Sun is much warmer than the North Pole. So when the Sun's rays hit the polar vortex, they warm it up just enough to make it wobble. That makes sense, right? Warm things wobble more than cold things. You know how your leg gets all shaky when you're tired and it won't stop wobbling until you take a nap? Well, the Earth is kind of like that. But here's the cool part. Sometimes when the Earth wobbles close to the Sun, the polar vortex gets strong again and sends even more cold air our way. So when the polar vortex gets stronger, the Sun warms it up, and then it gets stronger again and makes it even colder. It's like a game of tug-of-war between the Sun and the Earth. The Sun pulls the Earth closer, and the Earth sends back a really cold blast of air. Now, most of the time, this is no big deal, because the air from the polar vortex mixes with all the other air in the atmosphere and spreads out before it reaches us. But every once in a while, a weather event like a storm can scoop up this cold air from the polar vortex and carry it straight to us without mixing with the rest of the air. When that happens, we get really, really cold weather, and it lasts until another storm comes along and replaces it with warmer air. And it looks like this is going to happen this January. There's a big storm coming that will pull cold air from the polar vortex and send it all the way down to the equator. That means that for the next few weeks, some places will be so cold that the temperature won't melt anything, not butter, popsicles, or my hopes and dreams. You see, the air in the polar vortex is so cold that it reaches a temperature called absolute zero. At absolute zero, the air is so cold that nothing can move inside of it, not even atoms. Because of this, the air can't hold any heat, and anything that touches it becomes really cold really fast. In fact, the air in the polar vortex is so cold that if you were to touch it, you'd instantly become a popsicle yourself. And that's why it's important to stay warm this January, because if you don't, you might become a popsicle. Okay, maybe that's not actually what would happen, but you would definitely feel really, really cold. Now, being a popsicle might sound fun, but let me tell you, it's not. First of all, you wouldn't be able to do anything. You'd be completely frozen. You couldn't move your arms or legs or mouth or anything. Second, everyone would start acting weird around you because you'd look like a real popsicle. They might start taking pictures of you and putting them on social media or making fun of you behind your back. Third, someone might try to eat you. I know this sounds crazy, but it's true. There are people out there who would try to take a bite out of you if you were a real popsicle. So if you want to avoid all those bad things from happening to you, you need to stay warm this January. Here's how. First, wear lots of layers. The more layers you wear, the less likely it is that the cold air will reach your body. Second, cover up all the parts of your body that lose heat easily. This includes your head, ears, nose, hands, and feet. You can cover these with hats, gloves, scarves, and socks. Just make sure that each of these things covers one body part only. If you try to cover too many body parts with one thing, the cold will sneak in where you least expect it. Third, don't forget about your house. You need to keep your house warm too. Otherwise, the cold air will come in through your windows and doors and freeze you in your bed. You can keep your house warm by turning up the thermostat or by using a heating pad or hot water bottle in your bed. If you follow these tips, you should be able to stay warm this January. But if you don't, well, you might end up as a popsicle. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to click the like button and subscribe. Also, if you have a question you want answered, leave it in the comments section below, and I might turn it into a whole new episode. Okay, see you next time. One day a little girl was playing outside in the snow. She was making snow angels and having fun until she started to get cold, so she ran inside to warm up. But when she went inside, she noticed that her house was freezing cold. The windows were covered in frost and the pipes were making loud noises. She knew that her family had left town for the weekend and no one was there to fix the heating. She was all alone and she was starting to get scared. She didn't know what to do. Just then, she heard a knock at the door. She went to answer it and she saw a man standing there.
He was wearing a coat and a hat and he had a big smile. "Hello," he said. "I'm here to help you."
He asked if he could come in and she said yes. He looked around the house and saw that it was freezing cold. He took off his coat and hung it up.
Then he went over to the thermostat and turned it up. "There we go," he said. "That should warm things up in a few minutes."
He sat down in a chair and started reading a book. The little girl was watching him. She was confused. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. The man looked up from his book. "Because I'm your dad," he said. "Oh," she said, "I thought you were gone for the weekend." "I am," he said, "but I got a call from a friend who lives next door. She said you were all alone and I couldn't let that continue, so I came over to help." The little girl felt relieved. She knew that she could count on her dad to take care of her. "Thank you, Dad," she said. "You're welcome," he replied. "Now let's wait for this house to warm up." They sat in silence for a few minutes until the little girl spoke up again. "How did you know I was here?" she asked. "I didn't," her dad said. "I just knew you'd be safe with your mom, and I'd be able to relax knowing you were with her. But since you were alone, I wanted to make sure you were okay." The little girl thought about this. "So what would have happened if I wasn't here?" she asked. "Well, I probably would have been worried sick," her dad admitted. "But I wouldn't have known what to do about it. I mean, what would I say to your mother? I'd probably tell her that she shouldn't leave you alone when she goes out of town." The little girl nodded. "I agree," she said. "It's not fair to leave me here alone when she goes somewhere." Her dad agreed. "But listen," he said, "it's not always bad to be alone sometimes. It's good to learn how to take care of yourself. I was alone for a lot of years, and I learned how to cook and clean and fix things around the house. You can do the same thing if you want." The little girl thought about this. "I guess you're right," she said, "but I still think it's not fair. I mean, you could at least check in on me every once in a while and make sure I'm okay." "I'll do that," her dad promised. "But in the meantime," he added, "why don't you go play outside and have some fun?" "Okay," the little girl said. She put on her coat and went back out into the snow. Her dad watched her go and couldn't help but smile. "She's all grown up," he said to himself. "She doesn't need me anymore." He shook his head and went back to his book. As the little girl played outside, she couldn't help but think about what her dad had told her. She realized that he was right. She didn't need him anymore. She was a big girl now, and she could take care of herself. She smiled and kept playing until it was time to come back inside. When she went back into the house, she found her dad asleep in a chair. She smiled and tiptoed over to him. She leaned down and gave him a kiss on the cheek. Then she went upstairs to her room and snuggled into bed. As she closed her eyes, she couldn't help but think about how lucky she was to have a dad like him.